German accuracy is insanely good in World of Tanks, and this first example in the E50 shows exactly why, as it saves him from a calamity of a game. An early push into the western side of the map can get you 3 shots of damage on those unfortunates that cross from spawn into middle, but in this game the E50 doesn't manage to find anyone pushing and so has to use the brilliant 0.29 base dispersion to get only 1 shot off. Fortunately, the E50 knows that the position is unusable, and so he moves to the eastern slope to counter the mediums pushing round the cliff and on top of the hill to get a few shots in. The game goes from bad to worse as he gets hit by multiple enemies at once, lowering his hit points to make the late game more difficult, but still not unwinnable. And this is where the accuracy comes in clutch, to return shots back at tanks making aggressive moves towards you, and this is where the German tanks really come into their element, and it allows for some protection for his teammates as he's countering those tanks. This position is a really good defensive position should the enemies not take the middle, where they can get shots into your side, and it is a common thing that they will go into the middle to get those shots, but of course when you're in this position it's a great counter for the enemy tanks who tried to encircle his teammates on the cliff, but some good trades made that much easier by the accuracy coming clutch to remove a few of the aggressive tanks on the enemy team as they push from the cliff over to where the E50 is located. When you're in this scenario, it's imperative to pre-aim anyone who may poke that middle ridge that we saw earlier, where of course the CS-63, what he does is he stops them from being able to push, using the accuracy to just constantly harass them, removing as much hit points as he possibly can and going for any tracking shots that is possible, and that allows the friendlies to escape, and he's also dealing damage to them to bring up that damage total and of course hopefully win the game. The E50 then decides to actually move back and get into a position to support the T95 on his team against the STB who's spotted in the middle. He then manages to find the shell, finish the STB, and that allows him to be able to push up to support the T95 with the Death Star. Who of course he quickly snaps with a couple great shots. When you're in this sort of position in a clutch game, the accuracy is perfect and it allows for some great shots to shut down the Waffle Panzer 4 and leaves him alone against the E3, which unfortunately is too late to finish this game off and it ends up in a draw. If that wasn't enough proof that this type of accuracy and this German accuracy can save you from disaster, this replay right here in the Waffle Panzer 4 will show you the long range power of these tanks, and can the accuracy stack up at that long ranges and make that much of an impact. The first thing that the Waffle does is he sets up shop in the back of the base to provide support to the friendlies in the town, who actually get pushed super hard at the beginning of the game. And if you want to be pinpoint accurate right now, the subscribe button's pretty big and you're definitely not going to miss that one. And of course if you like the video for the algorithm, I'll be much appreciated, and maybe I'll even share some of my chips at the Wargaming RNG casino with you, along with more videos like this. Getting back to the game, this position is a great one for a passive start since it's outside of max view range for any tanks pushing the left and right hand side of the city, and it also has a ton of bushes between you and the middle, so it's actually very difficult to spot these tanks at the beginning of the game, but it changes as it goes on in the game and you'll see that in a second. With the team starting to seriously lose the town, the accuracy really starts to kick in, and so in perfect TD fashion, the real damage starts to be pumped out when the team are obviously losing. However, since the enemy team have no real opposition against a push towards the waffle, they come within max view range, and it's important not to fire until you know you have some bushes between you and them. Otherwise, if you get spotted in a tank like this, your accuracy is not going to save you, and those HE rounds are going to come flying in and you'll soon be back in the garage. However, with the flexibility that these German 12.8cm give you, he's able to land multiple shots consecutively that would have been far more difficult in that of, for example, a Soviet or a Chinese TD, where you might be missing, where you don't have a turret, and of course missing shots at this point could mean an easy loss. So instead he pushes towards the last location of the G-Saw to single him out from the rest of the pack and group with his teammate. Unfortunately, he doesn't actually manage to find the G-Saw yet, and in fact meets up with his teammates to create a exceptional crossfire, and this is something you should always be trying to do in World of Tanks. It's going to give you not only just damage and of course increase your chances of winning, but also allow you to get assistance damage because you might be spotting for your team and you can provide a different angle. Maybe you'll open yourself up to be able to go for the tracking and damaging shot, which is going to give you that tracked assistance to boost up that combined damage. A quick whistle-stop tour of the city allows for the Waffle to surprise the full health G-Saw from behind, giving him a helping of double penetration with the TS5 and a side of hot ass, followed by a few shots into the side of the Jagdtiger that we're never going to miss. The team win the game and another victory for the Germans. Finally, it's time to see a fast-paced action game, seeing how the tier 8 premium KPZ can whip out some snapshots, and boy does it whip out some snapshots in this one. And what better way than an aggressive hill push on Karelia to combat the enemy mediums and lights, of course being a fairly risky strategy where if you get overwhelmed by a ton of the enemy tanks you're going to end up in the garage very quickly. But that does happen in this game, but it doesn't end the way that you'd probably expect from most players. And that's because some great trading initially shuts down some of the tanks on the hill and of course the surrounding area with support from his teammates, but it also half healths a lot of the vehicles that are up here, including the T-34-100, but a rogue Peregrine, the tier 8 autoloading heavy, comes swooping in to ruin the day and takes the majority of the remaining hit points. However, with some bait movement, makes the Peregrine overcommit, and a quick peek shot gives the poor aim time and accuracy from that heavy a run for his money and lowers his hit points enough for a teammate to be able to finish him, whilst the KPZ then goes and shuts down the T-92 light with a quick flick and then has to worry about the Stura Emil. But yet again, another rogue tank comes in to try and ruin the day, but unfortunately he isn't German and didn't learn a thing or two from his teammate in the Peregrine, as the KPZ flicks across and down to send the T-34-100 back to the garage. Although he shut down a ton of opponents, the enemy team have overrun this side of the map, but once again failed to understand just how good this tank can be at flicking, as he finishes off the Leo and his German ally the Scorpion G on the enemy team. But with minimal hit points left, he has to be super careful as to what he's doing because he cannot take any more damage, and even a HE round would finish him off at this point. So taking the opportunity to do quick peeks is what is going to give you the most damage in the tank, where you're using the German accuracy alongside the mobility of something like the KPZ, and that allows him to help finish the IS-3 and then successfully finish off the 45 TP. But now it comes to the problem of trying to push a tank that is in the location of the Comet, and this is a super annoying position to try and dig someone out of, but luckily the Comet actually takes a retreating action and moves way back behind the rock to allow the KPZ to actually push up, and you really do have to take the opportunities to push up when tanks do that, and they give you the opportunity to do so, because it doesn't always happen and they can quite easily get shots into you. They can peek that corner and they can certainly be a real nuisance. Now the Comet gets quickly shut down, so he makes a beeline for the SU-130PM and the SU-152 last location, who didn't actually buy a German gun, and the KPZ counters him with a few well-aimed shots and then farms up the SU at the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, like it and check out this one as to how you can play tank destroyers aggressively.